I'm going to start off with our first panel this morning, Startup Investment Trend from Seed to Series A. Our moderator will be Bess Ho, and just a bit of an introduction on her. She's partner of Archimedes Labs, which is a Palo Alto-based startup incubator for early seed stage startup, and obviously a popular conference speaker. She presented at GSMA Mobile Asia Conference, Global Mobile Internet Conference, Women in Technology Summit, the Integrate Open, Silicon Valley China Wireless Conference, as well as the Silicon Valley Code Camp. And she's very popular, especially in the women engineering community. And I'd like to introduce Bess Ho.
Thank you for the nice introduction. Can I have all our panelists join us on stage? So again, our investment panel is Startup Investment Trend from Seed to Series A. And our hashtag is SVCW or SVC Wireless, and these are our Twitter. And I would like to introduce our panelists, starting from Skibinski. And he's a very active angel investor and founder mentors. Dr. James Jen, partner at Formation 8, and Manu Kunski, principal at Inventus Capital Partners. Let me kind of give you a brief background on each panelist. So Max basically is a serial entrepreneur. He co-founded Hive7 and other startups, and a resident mentor at Fiverr Startup, early stage startup mentor and angel investors. James is a partner at Formation 8, based in China, and he led the China initiatives of a number of portfolio companies, and he was a venture partner at SoftBank China, VC, and managing director of Australian government renewable energy venture capitalist fund. And Manu was a VP of products at many places, including MuseCop, and he also managed the product team at Google, where he worked on a product like Gmail, Calendar, Open Social, Open, and so on. Okay, so I'm going to ask a few questions on each panelist, so for the audience to get to know them a little bit better. So, what are your investment areas? Can we start with Manny?
Is there a microphone? Okay.
Yeah. There's an extra microphone.
First, do it in the morning. The big question was our investment areas. So we focus on software that disrupts sort of the current status quo. We stay away from hardware because the six partners have not experience with hardware. So whether it's consumer or enterprise, it's fair game. Our main focus is to invest in entrepreneurs. So we spend time getting to know the entrepreneur and his personality traits of the founding team that actually really attracts us. So we invest in anything from healthcare, education, consumer, mobile, gaming. So we're pretty open in terms of where the investments happen. And then we also invest in India as well. So half our portfolio companies are actually in India, and the other half are in the US.
Good morning. I'm a partner at a new fund called Formation 8. We closed our first fund this past March. $450 million growth fund. We have 5 partners. Our major focus of investment in the IT space are IT energy, IT in healthcare, government, finance, education. We pay a lot of attention to big data and workflow space. Thanks very much.
Hello, everybody. So I'm basically individual angel. So I was doing angel investing for about 3 years. I sold my startups at around 5 years to play on Disney, and initially I started angel investing as a hobby. As an example, with 500 startup as one of the original mentors, and with Y Combinator community, and kind of started investing. So I'm doing probably the earliest stage deals, it's all seed stage deals, often I work with companies that basically they're not even companies yet, they're not incorporated. And so I'm basically looking at like earlier stage deal flow happening in Silicon Valley.
Would you guys like to add anything like investment range and average investment size, like seed or Series A, or do you like to follow or lead?
Yeah, for myself, I'm doing earlier stage, so it's usually from 25 to 50, basically biggest investment I've done is 100K, and sometimes you will do follow-on, but overall when Series A funds get involved, it's really hard for individual angels to follow up. So basically the main value add is you filter those companies to basically become a farming system for great incubators and Series A companies.
We do mostly A to C round from a few $1 million to up to $28 million per check. But we also do a lot of seed investment, case by case. We have put in as little as a few $100,000.
So we typically lead Series A investments. Our ranges are anywhere between $1 to $3 million. And but we lead larger rounds. So at $5 million acquired, we'll do the 2.5 to 3, and then we invite some of the VC to do the rest of it. We almost always lead. We've actually found that in the past, when we led, we had returns that were almost 3 times better than when we didn't lead. So as a practice in the firm, we always lead. And we do follow on with our own investments, so we'll support our companies in the B and C rounds. And the opportunity to do larger growth stage, but typically 95% of our investments in Series A.
Okay, so 2013 is the year of collaborative consumption and sharing economy. So what is collaborative consumption? It's a class of economic arrangement in which participants share access to products or services rather than having individual ownership. So like in the old days, we have eBay and Craigslist as a marketplace, and now we move into, sharing, loaning money, sharing car, space, and then, sharing your experience and tasks. So sharing economy is referring to an economic and social system that enables shared access to goods, services, data, and talent. So we have these crowdfunding platform, Indiegogo and Kickstarter, and getting Series A funding. We see, some major changes in car ownership. We start from owning the car, and then maybe, shorter term lease the car, maybe even rent the car for weeks and days, and then now, we move into sharing car and sharing ride and making some money on that. So this is kind of interesting. So what is American dream? Back in 1960, about getting a new car after graduation, a new home after getting married. Going to year 2013, we are open to share your car, your ride, your room space, and even share your couch space, to a complete stranger. So it's what's happening. So like yesterday, BMW has reviewed young college graduates do not want to own a new car. New car growth has been flat in Europe. New car growth in US is slower. More young consumers are sharing car ownership and splitting the car insurance. So lately, there are many seed-stage startups in sharing rides, and cars are getting Series A funding. So with all these, startup getting VC fund, I'm going to turn to the panel and get their opinions. So how would these investments affect your decision in seed, angel, and VC funding? Do you think the car ride sharing are still in early stage, or is it too crowded?
Okay, so I probably will give my perspective from a seed stage. Kind of interestingly enough, I was involved as an investor in crowdfunding real estate company, and I'm involved as advisor in crowdfunding company for political campaigns and for crowdfunding startups actually in China. This is Beijing-based incubator. And I think the whole crowdfunding shared approach is definitely a trend. It's probably still will be playing out for the next couple of years. And what you always need to understand is sort of what is the major driver, what is the major motivation to let to drive people to participate in those activities. Because behind every vertical, if you look at Kickstarter, the driver is clear. Oh, I'm going to get the product that never existed before. I'm really excited to get this product. Then it's Airbnb, it's totally different. It's pure economic motivation. It's people basically figure out, oh, we have hidden asset, and we can monetize this asset at all time, just generate money for it. It's huge motivation. That's why Airbnb was so successful. Contrasting to that, for example, real estate crowdfunding kind of didn't work that well because there is just not enough exciting returns for people, and they looking, okay, if I do this, what's my return? I need to raise much. Same returns as other forms of investment. Startup crowdfunding it has this a little bit of mistakes that, like, let's say, grandmas who participate in Founders Club now, startup crowdfunding initiatives, they can think about this dream, oh, I'm going to invest into next Facebook, something I totally don't understand, but something magical will happen if I put my $500 into startup crowdfunding campaigns. And personally, I think given the hype existing today about startup crowdfunding, probably lots of people are going to get burned, and lots of people will like, okay, I give you my little bit of life savings, what do you mean startups fail? And mass market consumer doesn't really yet understand the risk of that. So I think this all those verticals, we have clumped them all together. This is sharing economy, crowdfunding economies, but they're incredibly different in between. It's like if we're going whole spectrum from total success, like Airbnb and Kickstarter, to basically fundamental total failures and potentially even lawsuits in some cases. So I'm always trying to look like what's the fundamental driving force why people participate in this new breed of activity, what's driving them, what's driving the other end, because all these spaces are marketplaces where the party meets. And then you need to make an assumption. It's like, okay, is this something that has potential to become mass market? Or basically like interesting experiment to do, but there is just no significant driver to make mass market activity.
I do like to ask Manu about this because why don't I, why don't you share with us how many portfolio startups that in your fund already funded or active now?
We have about 23 companies that are active in our portfolio right now. As a firm, over partners, we have over 115 companies. Can you hear me? Okay. So, closer. So I'll just rephrase quickly. So we have 23 active portfolio companies in the firm today. We have 115 that have done the last 15 years or so. We've had about 36 exits, which would economic value of about $33 billion. So the firm has done pretty well, but we stay focused on the macro VC space. So we prefer funds under $150 million, so we can come in early and actually most of us don't understand the real estate game. So something James is much better at. I can't deal with Excel as well as some other people can.
Can you share with us how many startups you invest in India or maybe in US?
Sure. About half our companies are in India, roughly speaking. They may start in India, but they end up becoming a US headquartered company over time. So we have 3 partners in India and there's 3 of us here. So besides me, there's 2 other full-time partners in the US. But we look at companies across both sectors.
Now, get back to you and James, because you do invest actively in India and China. Now, with the huge population in these 2 biggest countries, I'm sure that people don't walk these days. So, do you see, like people are buying new cars, or they are sharing rides or sharing cars?
I think in India, the aspiration is to be more like the US. I think China might be similar things. So owning cars is a big thing. But because of population growth and also access, people who share, I think they just do it instinctively. I think that even in the US, if you look back before World War II, sharing was actually pretty common. Right? Everything from sharing your car to cars in your house was very common. But there was a shift from going from cities, living in cities to living at work, and you had to have a big house, you had to have a big car to go back to work. And the shift is changing, so most of my friends and people don't want to live in work. They prefer living in cities with access to New York or LA. And I think it forces you to be collaborative and sharing again because you can't afford to. I'll give you a perfect example. When I moved to San Francisco, I actually left my car at my parents' house in San Jose because it would cost me $250 to park the car in my apartment, about $300 to $400 to park the car in my office, which is 2 miles away, right? And then I look at the car cost of leasing was another $500 to $600. So I'm already about $1,000, $1,100 into it. When you add insurance on top and depreciation in the car, I'm already down to $1,200 to $1,500 a month, and I only use that car about half an hour a day. Right, so it doesn't make any sense for me to actually have so much expense. Now I could afford it, so I could keep it, but I actually started using ZipCar, 5-6 years, actually pretty early on. So my cost of ZipCar, and I use it pretty extensively, was about $200 to $300 a month. Right, so if you look at the cost of what I did, I didn't have to worry about depreciation, I didn't have to worry about accident, I didn't have to worry about parking. So it actually makes a lot of economic sense. So I think people do this not because it's a new trend and you need to support ZipCar, but I think you do it because it makes commercial sense to do so. And I think technology is what makes it easy. Right? I couldn't figure out how to do a dual-sided network. If somebody has a car to offer and I need a car, how do I connect those 2 networks together? Right? And I think technology makes it easy for me to find the car somebody's offering a ride or their own personal car, or have ZipCar set up their own personal car. Right? I think having those 2-sided networks, the only way to solve this problem is having technology do it.
I'd like to mention that I also saw a San Francisco startup working on sharing bicycle. Now I know that China is really big in bicycle. Now, do you see any startup actually like using mobile technology or trying to found a company that using high tech to speed up the matching sharing process? James, you see any interesting one?
No, I can't see that being a profitable business. But anyway, so maybe I can just tell you sort of our investment philosophy rather than sort of answer your question, so that you understand where we're coming from. So we see the sort of the Silicon Valley evolution in the following way. That is, the Valley was started in the 50s, 40s and 50s by HP. It's sort of the electronics. And then it's Intel, semiconductor. And then you have the enterprise, SAPs, the Oracles. And then you have Telecom, represented by Cisco. And the last wave was the consumer internet, Google's and Yahoo's and Amazon's. So the question that we ask ourselves is, what's the next wave? We see these in these waves. We believe that the next wave, at least as far as we're concerned, is what we call a smart enterprise wave. So enterprise software that help employees, employers, enterprises to be more efficient at workplaces. For example, when you look at the consumer internet today, it's extremely advanced. We have WeChat in China and WhatsApp, and Fiber, et cetera. But when you go to workplace, how do people collaborate in the workplace? It's extremely backward, actually. And so we believe there's a huge space, a vacuum now in this space, and we look very favorably in this sector that we call the next wave of enterprise. We call it smart enterprise. So we don't invest in bicycle sharing. So this is how we answer your question.
Well, that's good for the audience to know. So we are learning that. And let's go to some home sharing. And these are the latest VC deals, like sharing your couch and room, and we even have IPOs here. So HomeAway vacation home sharing startup have raised total of $513 million, evaluate at $2.2 billion, file IPO in June 2011. So what are your thoughts on home sharing and sharing home? Would sharing home become a much bigger IPO than ride sharing? Or would home sharing move into US market? Is it ready for global market? In other countries? I know I just mentioned a lot of questions, but let's see, what are your thoughts?
Okay, I can try to get the step of this. So basically, I would broadly answer the following. By the time this name appears on your slide deck, usually that means that for guys for us in seed stage, maybe even Series A stage, this is far too late to invest. And personally, I'm not really sure. So yeah, it's probably nobody on the panel really understands super late stage. I'm not sure the guys who will invest in Airbnb today, they will get good return on their investment. So maybe they will get X2, X3, but it's. I'm strongly agree with James. Value goes in waves, and it's not some endless decades that you can keep investing into the same trend for decades. Trend appears, it's totally invisible initially, nobody really understands it, so the best time to invest in home sharing into Airbnb was probably 2, 3, 4 years ago. Whoever discovered this company, it was by combinator early investors, that's the guy who made the killing on home sharing. Now, fundamentally, we have very clear leader in the space. Upsetting these leaders would be very hard. There is no clear new invention happening in the past 2-3 years. It's we know how it works, we know why it works. Now this company suggests in linear scale. In fact, it just needs gross capital. But the most pretty much I think this is mature vertical now. The most returns already made in this vertical. So James is completely correct. If you're doing investment, especially early stage investment, you need to ride the wave. You need to be way before the crest of the wave. By the time wave is cresting, you should be exiting. You may be participating in secondaries and now basically you already should be realizing returns to your investors. I think this is now mature verticals. It's they're going to work, they're going to continue. In sense of investment, they only invested to late stage exits this moment.
That's good. It leads to the next slide. What do you think about the labor marketplace? We have Gigwalk and TaskRabbit, and is it too late now? For seed angel funding?
well, I will observe. So the first indicator that everybody will see, you know, as you change the slides. Well, this companies are as mature as previous slide, and all your numbers drop X times 10. So I think that's like instead of 100 millions, we're now looking at tens of millions. And this company exist about the same amount of time as the previous one. So I think that immediately signals us size of the market. Yeah, I mean, we're going to do personal speculations. Like personally, I think that's very indicative. That's what is the size of the spaces and this labor market sharing is clearly probably smaller than much smaller than like Airbnb, the home sharing market. So we believe in I think TaskRabbit recently did layoffs or something like that. So this is a bit more sketchy place. So, but who knows? Maybe one of those guys like will keep growing and win big. But like so far, we don't see much indication of going to the others and sort of I don't know, third-tier business, nice profitable third-tier business.
I mean, I'll give you an example. So whenever we hear entrepreneurs come and talk about, I want to be this or that, right? I'm trying to be the labor market, you know, similar to HomeAway, or I'm trying to be this, you know, AdSense or something else. So you're always trying to pick up on a trend that's already there. That means the entrepreneur is also pretty late in the market as well, because you know, if you're not disrupting, if you're not finding a solution that's 10x better than what's there today, you're not going to get the returns. As a venture firm, it's really hard for us to see returns down the road as well either, right? So trends happen. There's lots of people, lemmings that will jump onto the trends and say, well, you know, Hashtag is doing it. Can I do the same thing 5 times? Or can I do this in India? Can I do this in China or Europe or something else? And I think, yeah, they're valid pieces for people to jump into, but from a return perspective, they start diminishing very quickly.
Let's lead to a good slide.
Let me just make a brief comments here. So I encourage the audience to take a look at these sharing things from an enterprise level. So again, you know, we believe the next wave is a smart enterprise. For example, you know, one company that we invested in is truck sharing. So instead of bicycle sharing, and have you thought about these 18-wheeler trucks? Okay, if you are a small business owner and you need a truck, how do you get it? And are there empty trucks around you, or do you have to get a truck from all the way from one of, you know, Marin County or whatever? A lot of cost involved in that. So there's a lot of unmet needs at the enterprise level. And every consumer problem you look at here, there's a bigger enterprise problem. So turn the problem around and ask yourself, what's the problem that we're trying to solve? Is that a big problem? Just a brief answer.
Well, I just have a great idea. Why don't we share a factory space? Like share a warehouse.
Just when you said that, we're actually looking at a company right now, they're evaluating it, that actually looks at office space and utilizes it better. So if you're HB and you have office space all over the world, you know, can you offer space to other employees from other companies, you know, and vice versa. So you have companies that do that currently, but they own the entire building, right? And we just capitalized, Regis is one of the companies that offers office space. But there's about millions and millions of square feet of space available around the globe that doesn't get utilized, right? So if you can offer that through a collaborative, instead of, you know, offering a couch for someone to sleep overnight, you know, office workers, you know, that people travel times. So if I can go to New York and rent something for $100 a day, you know, I think those types of things are also coming around, and you can do large enterprise deals, right? So today I have 3,000 global workers, and I need this much space per year, and they can, you know, flexibly sort of, you know, get that space. Makes it a lot easier than you have one check coming from an enterprise rather than each employee deciding how much they want to pay. So those things are coming as well.
Let's talk about next wave, connected car and in-vehicle technology. Car is more connected to devices and internet, Wi-Fi, and we have all these, you know, big car maker open the platform in SDK or API. So, do you see any interesting company leveraging this technology?
we have been looking at the space for quite a bit. It's a little bit harder because unlike the app space where you sort of compete with other people based on similar successes, in this case, GM will decide what app shows up, right? And for you to monetize that is very difficult because each user's not deciding in the car what to buy or not to buy. So your sales cycle, your enterprise pieces become very difficult, and you're often competing with internal GMs or car companies' internal solutions as well, right? So right now we haven't seen where startups, unless you get acquired by one of these car companies, there isn't much of an exit probably right now, right? But things may change. Also, you don't want to. If I was Ford or GM, I don't want to open up my app marketplace on my dashboard. If a car gets in an accident because something happened, you're liable for the entire thing, right? So I think the liabilities in the car are massive. So if I was a car company, I wouldn't open it up. And if I was an entrepreneur, I have a very hard time getting into this car marketplace. So I think you're sort of in a hard situation, and the only way you can get in is if the car companies acquire you. But if there's only a few car companies, it's a harder market to sort of crack into.
Now, Max, you are involved in so many incubators, and do you see any startup?
Yeah, I've seen some startups. So there is a startup which, while I was speaking, I was desperately trying to remember the name of them. Unable to, so we'll just call it the startup. Yeah, so basically what they're trying to do is every car sold in the United States, it actually has a computer port inside. And it's actually pretty well spec out, so it's standard, and there's always like custom manufacturer extensions. So what those guys do, I think it's like $100, I think $100 Bluetooth device. You just insert it and put that port in your car, and it's pretty accessible. Basically, a box of wood, insert the device, and then it connects to your iPhone, and it gives you all sort of interesting information. And it basically becomes a very smart car, just saying like, okay, this is your speed, this is your oil consumption, this was going on, this was going on. It starts collecting statistics, your driving patterns, and literally can basically tell you, okay, you're wasting like a little bit more gas, and if you start driving with this pattern, you will save gas. So jury's still out. I think it's interesting toy. I'm not sure how big it's going to be, and that's exactly the whole risk of super early stage investment. So we are flying somewhat in the dark, and we're looking at all this like almost like very small indicators that this guy's attaching something big. So I haven't seen yet that they they taking world by storm in the world of auto enthusiasts. And yeah, overall, one argument is I think very correct. It's pretty tough to be in business where you have like 5 potential acquisition candidates, and this acquisition candidates basically overly. Another thing is keep in mind that there is one startup incubator about car, and name of the startup incubator is called Germany, because like we in Silicon Valley, we kind of think about technology. It's like, hey, let's write photo sharing apps and share gas. In Germany, the technology industry, basically that industry, it's car industry, that's what all the innovating about, and if you go to it, don't forget, in Germany, it's like you can drive without speed limits. ZipCars have radar, you can literally see in German cars, you will literally see, okay, that's this car ahead of me, that's its speed. So, as fun as it is, we're a little bit, as blasphemous as it sounds, way beaten back water when it comes to cars compared to Germany. So I think it's German auto companies are pretty innovative, and they're going to pioneer lots of those things way before startups here that have to operate under like all those investment pressures can like invent those things and make it mass market and go to market get distribution. So yeah, so I think it's.
Yeah, I do agree with you, because I start seeing some venture funds coming from these, big makers like BMW have IBM Ventures, and GM has a venture fund, and Hyundai, and so they all start putting some corporate fund and investing in startups, and even startup accelerator. So let's move to something smaller, like wearable sensors, gesture-based sensors. Many startups building around sensors outside smartphone. Big companies like Samsung, Sony, Qualcomm, Apple are working on smartwatch. Google is investing in the smart glass. So what are the investment opportunities?
We like this space a lot. I should say Mio is one of our portfolio companies that we're investing here. So we like this space a lot. It really plays into how we interact with our appliances and devices at home and at work, at enterprise level. So we like this space.
How do you see that work in workplace? The sensors.
Well, there are many. Yeah, right now, for example, Mio, they have a wristband that can control a robot, right? So you know what the Mio is? Basically, you have a wristband. Sorry, you have a wristband that senses your finger. When you move your finger, you move your muscle. It basically senses your muscle movement, and let's say you move your index finger versus your middle finger, and it senses it. And there are different motions. You can control different things. So what you can imagine in your workplace, you can be able to control a robot, right, remotely. Just with hand gesture, for example. And this can be applied to homes and many applications of this, right?
Okay, so I was told that we kind of running short of time, so I'm going to move to some other areas like 3D printings. And so fashion designer design 3D fashion shoes using 3D printers. You can print your music instruments, print the entire building, print plastic to replace bone and teeth. You can even use living cells to print your body part. A few startups are getting into this new do-it-yourself in 3D printing. Do you see anything interesting coming out of it? Is it a good, kind of like next way, to invest?
I actually think this is pretty exciting because it actually brings manufacturing back to things global. Right? So if you're missing a part, rather than having to wait for weeks to get it done, you can actually just print it. Right? So I think enterprise level is a huge value proposition here. You can have obvious build products very easily, right? Custom designing things. So I think this basically opens up a huge sort of product industry. Industries were products for centuries before mass production started happening. So I think this sort of brings it back. So if you're creative and you can build things, you can actually not have to worry about working with a fabric plant or something else. You can do this locally and actually.
I just have a good idea because lately I had to make duplicate keys. It would be cool if I just have a vending machine and just walk out in the middle of the night and get my keys duplicated.
I can also put the keys too.
Yeah, just for one night, right? So, okay, so let's go to social networking. So are we done with investing in social networking?
Yes, but it's over. End of the story.
What about messaging app? Are we done, or we still have a chance to get into
Why
it?
there is Bitcoin and messaging app? You have Bitcoin symbol. Is it about messaging?
But I would say you again you should look at the enterprise space. What are we doing at workplace? Are we collaborating effectively? We use these things all the time now in our daily lives. What are we doing at work? First, we use emails and etc. So that's the question I pose. I don't think we're that.
It's basically anecdotal evidence. I will share a story from Y Combinator that on Y Combinator community and list, there's always a running joke that every single class in Y Combinator, there must be one enterprise messaging company. And this joke running on Y Combinator list, I think, for the past 3 years. So there is always one, and you always never hear about it again after the class. So opportunity may be still there, and it's definitely in the enterprise space and the consumer space. But it's, everything, distribution, critical mass adoption, especially enterprise adoption, security compliance, and full disclosure, I was involved with one of the messaging startups in the long past. like it's whole another game. So yeah, it's hard to say when you basically figure out the whole puzzle of like build it, make it necessary, distribute it, make penetration and enterprise space.
Now let's look at the world population demands. What are the biggest investment opportunities in U.S. and China? Like educational tech, food tech, healthcare, energy, such as solar, wind, battery. Anything you see is is coming and is in the trend and next thing.
I will jump into this. Broadly, if you think about, I'm originally from Russia, so there is lots of poor people in Russia, and obviously probably I can say, don't go and check, there is probably enough of poor people in China and Middle East Asia. So let's say the secret here, you have to figure out how to make very rich company out of very poor people needs. Whoever figures it out, that's a huge opportunity. If I knew how, I would be already doing it.
I'll give you an example. So one of our companies in India sort of became the travel velocity for bus tickets, right? Average bus ticket is $8 to $10, and they built up revenues over $150 million per year just selling bus tickets, right? So you have a dual-sided network. I need to get a bus, but I can't figure out. And just like an airline, it became far more efficient. Where you could pick the seats, you pick the airline, you had all the information available. So I think there's lots of opportunity for that company. That problem doesn't exist in the U.S. Right? So nobody would try to solve that problem. So I think there's unique things in countries like India, China, Africa that are very unique to those people. That somebody sitting here making $200,000 a year can't even imagine what somebody who's making $2 a day, how would they afford to do certain things, right? So I think so some of those entrepreneurs will come from those areas, copying the model that works in the U.S., works for certain categories. So I'll just look at India. So there's about 55 million people in India that make over $50,000 a year, right? Which is the same per capita income in the U.S. Right? So for those people, you can afford the same thing that somebody in the U.S. will, right? So the product, by copying Groupon and making it work in India, that will work for that segment, but it won't work for 1.2 billion people, right? So you have to figure out as an entrepreneur where do you focus on, what are the unique pain points, and really doing that homework, trying to figure out, things, everything. Almost everything is new for that, right? So if you look at, whether I'm consuming a car or a ride, to just buying goods every day. Right? I think it's a huge opportunity. E-commerce is still doing really well in Asia, and I think room for growing that is pretty massive.
So my view of this, I stated, for the next 10, 20 years, smart enterprise is really a big space. But further down the road, I see healthcare as the next frontier. When we go to the doctors today, what do? They look at us and listen to our heart, measure blood pressure, then some X-rays, whatever, and then tell us the piece guess of what the problem could be, right? So piece guess, where does that come from? Right? It comes from his personal experience, right? So the older the doctor is, the more patients he has seen, the better that guess is, right? And that's basically what it is, right? So now with all of these, we're keeping track of all of our health records now, right? They're all online, they're all digital. So in the future, there will be a day when actually we are investing in companies in the space now that look at historical data, and pretty soon in the future you'll be able to say, well, here's our symptoms. What are the best guesses of what this could be, right? And that's going to be far better than a single doctor because you have millions and millions of data points to check to come up with that conclusion. So just one very simple example, when the drug goes through the clinical trials, right? You have to go, X number of people, repeats, et cetera, et cetera. But have you thought about there's really no requirements for drug combination effects? So I'm taking aspirin, and at the same time I'm taking my antihistamine, for example. Okay, what's the combination effect? There's no requirement for that. But we have all the data now. We can analyze all that. So I think the next frontier, in my view, will be after smart enterprise. Part of the smart enterprise will be like smart healthcare system and healthcare delivery systems, including mobile, etc.
Well, that's kind of lead to the next big thing. Like Google CEO Larry Page said he will invest in moonshot ideas. So Google is launching a new company called Calico to solve the problems of death, to extend human life. And he won't see any return in 20 years. So what is your real goal? What can you see in like 1 or 2 years, 5 to 10, or even 10 to 20 years?
As venture capitalists, we focus on things we can return money back to LPs in 10 years. So I think, no offense to my old boss, but 20 years out, I think it's fine for philanthropy and sort of long shots. And if you look at primary research, almost gets done by lobbying credit, right? Entrepreneurs, startup entrepreneurs can't focus on primary sort of moonshot things because you have to return money to convince the VC to give you that money as well, right? So I think you become far more practical as an entrepreneur, or you should be far more practical as an entrepreneur, and you let large sort of projects like that, you let the government or to people like Larry and Sergey to do those because they become extremely expensive and they don't have to have returns because they own money, right? And I think that's okay. So I can't predict what happens in 20 years. So maybe hopefully I'll still be alive. But if you focus on some of these things here, I think smart glasses, I wouldn't invest in startups today because I want to see what the distribution would look like, right? I've seen some really interesting technologies in smart watches where they can predict epilepsy and really help. It's not just I want to keep track of something vain, but really helping you with medical pieces. But you need adoption of the technology, the hardware can happen and stuff, right? And then the software can follow, the applications can follow, right? If you look at all the applications in the iPhone and Android today, would you invest in those companies 8 years ago before iPhone got launched? Most likely not, right? So I think you have to wait till some of these things happen and be able to then sort of follow through pretty close.
So anyone want to add to that before we open the questions?
I think it's a very important part in, besides service implementations, it's actually great to be Larry and Sergey. But I think it shows like a very big structural problem we have in Silicon Valley, and lots of people know it. And the reason of this solutions is that, so like if you work with incubators, what's your time frame? Your time frame is 3 months, and that personality frustrates me as an angel investor, since like really good ideas, you cannot go from nothing to product in 3 months and build a great company. So that's the biggest difference for early stage incubators. Then we go one stage up to venture capital, and exactly it's like they have to show returns in 10 years, but that doesn't mean that the company can have those 10 years. Probably a company at the moment of funding, like especially a fund that already exists, like investors should see some results within 5 years, so it's 5 years time frame. So what Larry is doing, Elon Musk is doing, Peter Thiel is doing, I think they fundamentally our real heroes in Silicon Valley. I don't think is that much of a heroes. These guys are really heroes because they take the personal money and they're saying, hey, we're going just to make a bet for humanity. We're going to look at really big fundamental problems that no investor is going to touch, and obviously government is absolutely dysfunctional to do what it's supposed to do, drive long-term structural innovation, and they're just putting money in to make this happen. And I think returns from this activity are absolutely non-linear, so I mean they're hugely non-linear, they're like X thousand meters and anything else. And I fully agree, I think it's because to some degree, in some areas, China policymaking is much better than our policymaking here. There's actually a huge opportunity. This type of projects, rather than they will be funded by a few individuals, will start to be funded on governmental level with finding proper people with proper vision to run these initiatives.
So we're going to open the questions to the floor. Anyone has questions? To our panelists? Yes?
This question is for Jane. information about this question is this question is specific to James. You mentioned a little bit about big data, and you sort of talked a little bit about big data in healthcare. Since you are focused on China, can you elaborate a little bit more in terms of big data in China?
So, you know, one thing that China has that maybe the second closest would be India is the population. There are a lot of people there, so a lot of data points. So I looked at a company that, for example, you know, the kind of innovation I talked about, right, really requires a lot of data, right? When you really, for example, you want to live longer, okay, the Japanese live the longest. So the question is, why? Is it the diet? Is it the gene? Is it how they behave every day? Is it how they exercise? So before, no one was asking these kind of questions, right? I mean, we were focusing on diet, maybe they're eating too many seaweeds or whatever, you know. But who knows, right? So it's right there. That's a big data problem, right? And we have started to collect these data now. We have wearables now. We're tracking people's activities, and now we can sequence the entire genome for like less than 1,000. Pretty soon it'll be like $100, right, per genome. We have a lot of genome data. We have the genes. We can track their diets, apps, track their diets, et cetera, et cetera. So pretty soon we'll be able to ask those type of questions. But those are longer term questions. The shorter term, I should say, you know, in China, I've seen a company that has a hospital information. They have a hospital information system, and they have the hospital and doctor visit records of 400 million people. You know, different drug interactions, different. You can ask all sorts of questions. You have that sort of data, right? So there's an interesting juncture between sort of data, the collection of data, and the availability of data, and format of data, and the technology. That, you know, of course, we have that data. The next question is what kind of questions are you going to ask, right? So that comes with technology, right? You know, data mining and et cetera, et cetera. So I see a great potential if we, you know, that's what we're here for, is to combine the best minds in Silicon Valley and the availability of large amounts of data elsewhere to make some of to create some of the best companies in this sense. I hope I answered.
Any other questions? Mike?
Following with the still the difference earlier comments on technology as well. And my current company is actually doing what I think James was talking about enterprise. So what we were doing is using sensors and data analytics to help enterprise to manage data, which I think so it's so true against that because enterprise is learning from what consumers are using, they're using the mobile and everything to make them more productive. But along that line, actually now we're looking at smart healthcare. So that's a new direction. So I guess I have a question for all three of you. The smart healthcare has been a topic that a lot of people have been talking about the last, 6 months to a year. But I guess my question, for your opinion is, there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of people trying to use smart devices, people are trying to say, hey, we have this smart device, we also put the software in the cloud so we can see it, maybe we can do it. Then there's also people who are saying, hey, I have this thing, I can provide your temperature, your heartbeat, now you're smart. What is that from a product, from a collection point of view, what you can see that will be really to do a good job in this use case? Thanks.
So personally, I think in the space you talk about, it's like sensor, data, digital health. I think we're right now in kind of Cambrian explosion phase of the space that everything become possible, and there are thousands, probably hundreds, maybe even 1,000 companies trying to build whatever they imagine. And literally, I mean, just last week alone, I had a pitch of a company that saying, hey, there is so many of these wearable medical devices, consumers are getting totally confused, like what to buy, what to do. So we build a startup that connects the manufacturer of these digital health devices with physicians, with doctors, and they're going to review and specifically recommend based on data, based on the experience, what specific device is good for like specific activities. So it's an information portal. And those features come all the time. And I think fundamentally, to a degree, nobody really knows how the space plays out because it's so new. So, again, as Manu said, you look at the team, you try to judge the team, try to judge the expertise, and make your own model of the space and make educated guess what the team does. And then, fundamentally, we place our bets, this plays play out over the next few years. And then will be exactly as from sharing a couple of very strong leaders will appear. Kind of this literally capture most of the upside and most of the returns, and everybody else who participated in this big experiment basically fall to wayside and disappear over the time. So the question is right now to identify these future leaders, and that includes identifying the type of activities they're going to do. So my personal bet, like take it with a grain of salt. I think that's like my proverb about this type of spaces. It's like this space is pure gold. So the things you need to find who makes picks and shovels for that goal to be mined.
So, I mean, I have a simpler answer on this, right? So, and I've been guilty of this too. In Silicon Valley, we love building technology, but often we don't actually find the right solutions, right? So I think, with all the wearable devices, a simple answer, right, is the feedback loop. The faster you have the feedback loop to give me answers back, the better I'm going to be able to use the product, right? And that's a very simple way to look at it. But from a consumer standpoint, whether it's enterprise or consumer, if I have more feedback on my body, if I'm harming my body today, right now, right, and if it takes me 6 weeks for me to go to the doctor and find out I did something wrong, it's usually too late, right? I think as James was mentioning, we have pattern recognition that physicians do. But it's usually after the fact. I think what devices do is give you that feedback right away, right? So I think when you build these technologies and look at all the data that you're collecting on these physical devices, how do you actually analyze, how do you sort of create solutions back to the users that are saying, hey, you did 3,000 steps yesterday, maybe if you do 6,000, you'll be on your goal better, right? And really helping giving that feedback loop, right? And I think just like a car, if I didn't know how fast I was going, I can't argue with the state trooper when I get pulled over, right? So that feedback loop is very important to figure these things out, right? And technology, I think, is the only way. I mean, we're spending 20% of our GDP in the U.S. on healthcare, and the only way to bring this cost down is through technology. Right? So if we're healthier, we have that feedback loop. I can actually fix those problems better.
So sorry, I thought that we have an hour session ending at 11, and actually, on the schedule it's break earlier than that, 10:45, so we are running over here. So thank you so much for coming here, to our, please give a big applause to all the panelists.